First of all, thank you everybody for joining. This is a series on recalibrating course with proactive anticipatory credit strategies. This is the first in a series, which would be best practices in customer onboarding and credit assessment. We will follow this up with a couple more sessions in the new year on best practices in customer risk management and best practices in collection optimization. So if you enjoy this one, definitely sign up and register for the next in the series. So I am Jay Daly. I am the D&B Partner Strategy person at Dun Bradstreet. I will be hosting the call today. And with me as our subject matter experts, we've got Chris Rios, who is Vice President of Finance Analytics. Chris has an extensive background in credit and finance prior to joining D&B. Adam Sig from Huron Consulting Group in the data management practice. Adam has extensive experience in the data management area, consulting and working with Dun Bradstreet. And then we've got Patrick Foy, Jitterbit Director of Channels and Alliances. Patrick's got 7 or more years experiences in working with the integration software area. So those are our primary people. And to start things off, we just wanted to kind of get a status of where everybody is at on automated credit decisioning. So if you can take a second and click on one of the answers here, we'll see what the results are. There we go. Okay. So very good mix. Got a percentage going 75% or more, and then percentage all the way down to no automation whatsoever. So that gives us a good starting point. Thank you very much for participating there. At this particular point, I'm going to actually start off with Chris. Chris, from your perspective, where are you seeing the trends in customer onboarding today?
Yeah, good question, Jay, and hello everyone. This is Chris Rios, as Jay said. I think, right now where we're seeing the trends is really in businesses taking incremental steps to introduce some level of operational efficiency. And by that, I mean, they're looking at 2 areas of primary focus. It's how do I, bring on new customers successfully, mitigate the risk, bring them on. But there's also a focus, and also we would suggest as a best practice, when you're onboarding customers, you need to have a way of maintaining those customers. And by that, I mean, everyone can understand the concept of creating a customer. But what I like to talk to customers about is once you've created that customer, start to leverage there's a series of attributes, if you will. We really always think about the business name, the address, the phone number, the email address. Those are certainly attributes. But in a risk management setting, you want to also start to consider certain analytics that can be appended to that customer record and live with that customer through its life cycle. So I see I would say more focus on, customers really embracing the data management aspect of maintaining their customers. And then, of course, when we think about credit decisioning, before you created the customer, you want to make sure that you're obviously making good decisions based on financial information and other information that's provided by the customer, third-party providers, financial statements, all the traditional things you would do in a credit decision process. But where I see, a lean from our customers at D&B, and we have just somewhere in the neighborhood of 30,000 globally, so we have a good feedback system where our customers are telling us what they need. And the one thing that really stands out is the online credit applications, making those credit applications not only available for a customer to sort of go self-serve and apply for credit, but also for their internal customers like sales reps. Sales reps can go out and proactively complete these online credit applications in advance of going out and meeting with the customer so that they know before they actually get into a meeting or a discussion, is this a good risk? Is this a high risk? Is this something I even want to pursue? So I said two, I would say three things. There is the pre-screen that I just mentioned, whereby customers can leverage these online credit applications and introduce a level of proactive decision-making or pre-screening in their sales process. Then, of course, there is the decision, the more traditional credit decisioning that happens. But again, the self-service model allows customers to go to these online applications, complete the forms, and get an immediate response to whether or not they're going to be extended credit. And then there's this idea that if I've made a decision and I'm bringing on a new customer, how can I leverage analytics on that customer record to monitor and maintain that customer through its life cycle? Because those scores, those attributes, those analytics will change with a certain frequency, and managing that frequency will actually allow you to better manage that customer as you start to sell on open credit terms. So, when we think about data, there's plenty of data providers in the market today, but the important thing when we think about data is these four items: accuracy, completeness, timeliness, and cross-border consistent, right? So we want to make sure, when you think about all of the information you have as a business within your portfolio, I always recommend, when you're dealing with a data provider, for example, let that data provider have access to your portfolio, because they can ensure that the information that's in there is accurate. So for example, I found in my previous life leading finance organizations, before I joined DNB, there were a lot of duplicates. There was a lot of incorrect information on customer records. There was just a lot of incorrect data as well. And there wasn't this idea that, there's a process you can follow to cleanse that data, to ensure that it's accurate. You want to make sure that you have a unique identifier, something, for example, like a DUNS number. Some customers use that. Some have other proprietary unique identifiers, but you want to ensure the accuracy of your data. And the completeness is important. That's part of the accuracy. So when we think about that customer record, yes, it's the business name, it's the address, it's the phone number, it's the email address, it's the contact information. But absent any of those items, you essentially have an incomplete record. And the completeness of that record is only enhanced when you start to introduce other analytics. So for example, we have in the market, there's predictive financial analytics. We have financial stress scores, commercial credit scores, paydex. Some of you may be familiar with. These are scores that are changing sometimes weekly, monthly, quarterly. But the fact that they're changing allows you to observe and monitor and maintain your records in your portfolio so that you can see the performance overall. And that becomes important. And Jay mentioned early on, we're going to have sessions in the new year that kind of expand on that idea. But inevitably, as a business, certainly profitable businesses, those that want to turn a profit, you are going to be faced with selling on open credit terms. By the simple nature of that statement, you're going to have to manage your portfolio, and the behaviors of the portfolio will actually begin dictating your collection management strategy, your risk mitigation treatment strategy. So these analytics, being a part of that customer record, are essential. And then, of course, for businesses, just to close out, the cross-border consistency is important. We have over 500 million records in our database. We have partner networks as well as our own networks globally. And when you think about operating in a global setting, the consistency of information is important, market to market, region to region. I mean, even within the United States, state to state, some businesses are broken up regionally that way. And the cross-border consistency is only a nice or fancy way of saying, look, I may only have access to a certain data set in a particular market, but I need it to be equally consistent with how I'm treating my customers in other markets. And that consistency is important because that allows your user community, your analysts, your credit folks to make decisions on an equal playing field. And that's important because once you start to introduce these operational efficiencies, the last thing you want is to have a market say, I can't treat my customer base the way you do over here because of data inconsistency. So just something to keep in mind, and certainly something we encourage our customers to think about as they start to embrace the idea of bringing data and analytics into their finance operations discipline, particularly the credit area. So here, I think, this is really just essentially what we've been talking about, right? So we want to make sure that I like to talk to customers and say, you can't overstate the importance of customer onboarding, right? So, I mean, you may want to, we probably, Jay, in a future presentation, maybe we put credit assessment before customer onboarding. But the idea here is, when we think about the sales process, lead generation, prospecting, all those things that happen before you actually have a viable opportunity. What I see a lot of customers doing to get ahead of risk is they're essentially looking at their sales pipeline, and whether you use a CRM, Salesforce, there's you name them out there. I mean, Salesforce is probably the most prevalent CRM in the marketplace. Microsoft Dynamics, I hear about from customers a lot as well, or a homegrown system, or even an Excel spreadsheet, whatever the case may be for your business. A lot of the customers that I'm speaking to, they're looking at getting way ahead of the risk mitigation process by proactively pre-screening opportunities. So it's not necessarily a full-blown credit check. It's nothing that should impede the sales cycle, but essentially, it usually becomes an opportunity where you may take a particular score that you find favorable. So there could be a predictive analytic that's meant to determine the likelihood of financial distress. It could be a proprietary score. It could be a series of scores or models. But the point is, as early in that sales process as possible, you want to start to evaluate those leads and prospects. And I found a couple of benefits. One, now finance, in particular credit, which typically, when you talk to sales reps and you talk to credit professionals, they're sometimes at odds, and more times than not, they're butting heads because I think, sales feels they're an impediment to the sales cycle. Credits, wondering why we keep putting risk on the books because inevitably we have to chase it on the back end. But this proactive positioning creates a synergy. So now the finance folks are making a contribution to sales by nature of them proactively pre-screening. So if I can let a sales rep know, hey, look, this is a high-risk customer. We haven't done a full-blown evaluation, but keep it in mind as you're going through your sales cycle, through your discussions. And, inevitably it becomes a business decision. And that business decision is made by sales leadership, your controllers, CFOs. If you've been in credit a while, I've not met a credit person that can raise their hand and say with 100% certainty that they're given full autonomy to say no to a deal. If you've been in credit a while, you say no. That rep usually escalates to their leader, who escalates to your leader, who escalates all the way up the chain, and ultimately it becomes a business decision. Doesn't necessarily mean you haven't done your job, and the information you're sharing is certainly important, but it immediately sets you up for this more combative type of relationship with your sales organization. So the pre-screening helps tremendously. So it's important. And then everything else follows suit, as we've been discussing, credit, et cetera. So at the end of the day, when we think about transforming credit management, it's really staying true to the fundamentals, where we're not suggesting you go 0 to 100 miles an hour and take what you may do today in a quasi-automated or semi-automated way, and all of a sudden you're going to gain 100% automation. I think what it comes down to is really making sure that you have analytics and data and analytics that you trust, right? Essentially make those confident credit decisions. You want to increase operational efficiency. So again, I've never sat in front of a customer and said, you're going to achieve 100% automation and all of a sudden you don't need your resources and you're going to have this tremendous amount of savings. The byproduct of operational efficiency will inevitably be time savings, so that you can repurpose your resources on those more value-added activities, and in turn that creates cost savings, because you're optimizing your people resources, but equally important, you start to optimize your technology resources. And of course, when you start to free up the resources time to do the true and proper analysis, those business insights now allow your credit team to be part of the strategic decision making that your business is deciding on, because the insights you're gleaning from better management of the portfolio, behavioral trends within the portfolio. You can break this down by industry, market, verticals, however you want to slice and dice. But the data and analytics, because they're living and changing at a frequency that's going to allow you to start to develop patterns, that information can now be fed back to the other parts of the business, namely sales, namely your accounting groups and your controllers functions, and they can start to proactively make decisions on, do I chase this customer in the portfolio? Should I book a higher reserve provision because I have a spike in financial risk? Or maybe I can bring that reserve down because I'm actually seeing a positive trend within my portfolio. So all of these things make a strategic contribution to the business. And I think at the end of the day, what I like to tell my customers is embrace the data, make sure what you're using today is accurate and complete, start to introduce, albeit slowly, introduce new data and analytics. And I think over time, and not a tremendous amount of time, but certainly over the course of 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, you start to glean important insights from the information, and that gets fed back to the business that will ultimately help growth of your organization.
Chris, that's fantastic. A lot of great information. Adam, from your perspective, what are you seeing in terms of customer onboarding as it relates to the customers for Huron?
Yeah, it's really starting to show up as we start to work with clients on establishing kind of data governance principles and master data management. Our clients are recognizing that onboarding is the opportunity. It's the beginning of a leading customer experience. And this all depends on fundamental data, really that identity and quality early on in the process. And this comes back to some of the points Chris was making, that it's not just accurate and complete data, but it's timely. The point of lead conversion, the point of an application submitted, we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to establish and enrich with D&B data. And this drives action across the rest of a business process. It helps improve priority of an opportunity. It helps drive decisions around worthiness. It helps, once we determine worthiness, to move to origination and fulfillment. It's this ongoing operations receive the benefit of this upfront kind of quick investment to get the data up to a certain standard. And everything that follows moves faster, moves easier, whether that's just the simple receipt of cash from products or services, or it's even just serving the customer or monitoring the customer. A lot of that follow-on monitoring covenants, monitoring renewals is driven by the ability to recognize relationships or recognize fundamental events within that master data. And that drives directly into some of Chris's points on scorecards and automation of decisions, faster routing, faster handoffs. A lot of our clients are really focused on how do we reduce non-selling time, or how do we proactively identify and manage risk. That all starts with consistent fundamental data that is reused across all the subsequent business processes. And it comes back to some of the things we've been hearing about for years: governance, master data. How do I start small? How do I have an impact that can cascade across the organization? As we transition out of where efficient onboarding happens, would love to get some feedback from our folks on the phone. Is where are they at? Where are they at in their journey for kind of establishing that fundamental data, particularly as it relates to that onboarding process within their organization? So do you have data quality as a key setup within your customer organization? A lot of our clients say, hey, if I only did have that, man, what we could do with that information. Or it's there, but it's dependent on a relationship manager, a sales manager, manually entering it. And some have that automation built in, that we just need some basic attributes that allow us to just open up the enrichment of D&B data and really get a complete picture. And as we start to get that feedback, we can really start looking at moving forward on where and how is that fundamental data applied and used within the organization. But give folks a couple more seconds to submit their feedback, because would love to kind of have that influence how we talk through the next concepts. Some of our folks might be well on their journey around getting that fundamental D&B data in place. And while those results are coming in, we can go ahead and click on forward and start to just talk over where is this information. And it looks like actually they came in and we're kind of pretty close to a bell curve. We've got some folks that really are seeking that opportunity to get the fundamental information that would drive this picture of their customer set. There's some folks there that are most manually dependent on data entry to capture key information around legal entity, around where their location is, what industry sector they belong to. How can we start doing some fundamental risk scoring and creditworthiness scoring? So great news. There's a lot of opportunity for the folks on the phone to just a little bit of initial effort up front, give us a full picture. We may be doing equipment lease in one sector and helping support an issue we're in another sector, but they all roll up to the same entity. We can understand our global or industry-based risk perspective because of some of this fundamental data that can show up right out of the gates. And this is where we can start pulling together, where is our revenue? Where is our risk? Where is our receipts outstanding? Are we seeing a certain event in industry or geopolitics that will impact our revenue or our recognition coming up? So this is where that fundamental comes together. And it's just the basic stuff, like to say phone book data, name and address, location, sector, what NAICS or SIC code are we in? How can we make some decisions about routing leads and opportunities based on the industry and size of an opportunity? Do we already know this customer? Do we already know the risks of this customer because a subsidiary has come through the door? So these are the underpinnings, and based on the feedback, sounds like a lot of great opportunity to just ingest this basic data for those on the phone. With this fundamental data in place, Chris, I know we can go even further once we have the fundamental data in place. What else can we overlay from a D&B perspective to the extent folks are focused on global risk management?
Yeah, I guess I'll respond a couple of ways. One is, as we have on the slide here, we're starting to see the introduction of alternative analytics, right? So things that aren't, don't fall in that traditional finance sort of category. We've got, I'd say, the more prevalent items here would be introducing data around ESG, environmental, social governance analytics, certainly fraud analytics. If we think about just the last couple of years alone, when we think about supply chain disruption, we're seeing the convergence really of what traditionally you'd have financial data really scrutinized when you're talking about credit decisioning and customer onboarding. But if we look at the other side of the business and we start to talk about vendor management and bringing on vendors, there's a series of KYC activities that are conducted by those teams to also help mitigate risk. And what I'm finding is the more successful businesses, and by successful, I simply mean being able to introduce operational efficiency at a high rate, they're starting to bring the two worlds together, meaning the data from both worlds together. So very simple comment here. You'd want to do a fraud check, a sanction screening, and then your credit decision. So long as those things are part of a decision workflow, that introduces a tremendous amount of efficiency because, presumably, if there's a high propensity for fraud being introduced by a business, you're not going to go through the next several steps to get to the credit decision. You're likely going to want to adjudicate that or just outright say, no, we can't do business with this company. Sanctions lists, clearly there are regulatory obligations that U.S. businesses have, but then there are a series of global regulations that govern, companies or individuals that are on sanctions lists. So these are things that I'm seeing, companies start to introduce. And then there's a series of the other items here on this screen that you can introduce. But I think this may lead into some of the next part of the discussion is, so what, right? That's the question. So what? All these analytics are out there. That's great. But if I'm still operating in a task-oriented manual way, there's no way to gain the efficiencies. And I think, the overarching theme that we want to touch on in this discussion is, where do my integration points come in? How do I start to take advantage? So if we all agree that the data and analytics are important, if we all agree that, bringing technologies together in a certain way is going to be beneficial. Now, how do I make those integrations and how do I get that working for me? And the one thing that I like to tell customers, businesses don't always need to rush out and adopt a single enterprise software solution. They're expensive, they're timely they take a lot of time to deploy, and inevitably, it becomes a multi-year exercise. Whereas data and analytics, things that my colleagues here on the line can speak to with integration points, you can start to marry middleware with enterprise applications. And even though they may be disparate systems, by nature of creating your customer record early on, accurately complete with the data and analytics, with that unique identifier, that will flow through that technology ecosystem in a consistent way that you probably saved yourself several $1 million by introducing some of this, what I call low-hanging fruit. And, you just really can take advantage of the data and analytics and integration going far beyond a simple concept like credit decisioning or risk mitigation. It really becomes a behavioral change within organizations, and it really sets them up for success without a lot of expensive overhead, without a lot of ripping out systems and softwares and introducing new expensive systems and softwares. It's just it becomes a part of the discipline, a part of the policy and procedures that businesses utilize, and I've seen them be extremely successful for it.
So we've got another polling question we're going to do right here real quick. In terms of your organization, are you using predictive analytics in your current processes? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that, guys. Chris, you want to just kind of finish off this last piece, and then we'll move
Yeah,
to the
yeah, sure.
connectivity
So
piece?
absolutely. So yeah, that was an interesting result on that last poll question. So certainly seems like an opportunity. And again, as we close out here with decision maker, there is a module based solution that DNB has, literally called decision maker. But really, what it allows businesses to do is make those rules based credit decisions. And so the rules based decisions, you hear terms. It sometimes they're judgmental, sometimes they're custom models. The point being, it's whatever. Essentially, think about what you're doing today, even if it's manual. Those task-oriented activities, those certain data points that you're looking at to make decisions, all of that can be fed into this particular module to make those rules-based decisions. Now, I encourage all our customers to really do a retro analysis of their portfolio, essentially take several months, if not a full year of historical AR activity, and allow for an analysis which will result in determining a proper definition of what's bad. It'll help determine what attributes you should be utilizing in your decision-making process, but all that feeds the rule-based concept here. Online credit application, again, let those customers self-served. I have to say, the days of, paper applications, while they still exist, and there are certain industries where that may still be prevalent and important, start to move that needle a little bit up this efficiency chain, by introducing online applications. Again, the decisions you're making manually with financial statements to your left, your 10 key on the right-hand side of your desk, and a bunch of information about the customer in front of you. All of those are the task-oriented activities that I know can be put into solutions like Decision Maker. And then again, the pre-qualification, I've stressed it. I think it's a real win for finance organizations. If you're able to inform your sales organization of any inherent risk in the prospecting lists that they're looking at, or in the lead generation process, it doesn't have to be exhaustive. It doesn't have to be an impediment. It's simply starting to introduce a few different analytics that will allow you to quickly determine. And it's as simple as, the stoplight concept, red, yellow, green. Just give that visual aid. This is a good risk, this is a bad risk, or it's moderate. And at the end of the day, you've done your job proactively, and it's up to the business to make a decision if they're going to move forward. But a solution like Decision Maker, and these three key areas of focus, that's where you're going to gain the operational efficiency, because you're taking those task-oriented activities, you're pumping the rules around that, the parameters, the criteria, all the decision points you're making become a rule set. And once you define those rules within a tool or a module like Decision Maker, the system then begins to do the task-oriented activities that you may be performing today. And that's where your resources start to see opportunity to go focus on bigger problem areas, resolution of disputes, better reporting, because now they're doing deep dive analysis on the portfolio. So really just we started, it's funny, we started with analytics, and here we are. I mean, there can be a significant contribution coming out of the finance organization to the strategic growth of your business. And it starts very simply by introducing data and analytics, identifying the areas of opportunity for integration, bringing software, bringing connectors, bringing data and analytics together, and slowly introduce tools that are not as invasive as full-blown, software implementations into the mix to gain those efficiencies.
Chris, that's great, and it's actually a great point to ask Patrick. So how are you at Jitterbit kind of seeing companies orchestrate this? There's a lot of different things that have been talked about, a lot of steps and processes. movement of data. What are you seeing in the marketplace?
Yeah, thanks, Jay. And just for people on the call that don't know, Jitterbit is a agnostic middleware or integration platform that sits in between some of your enterprise systems and applications like a CRM, ERP, and D&B's finance analytics platform. So I say agnostic because we're not subject matter experts in necessarily credit decisioning, but we are in integration, and we see the same type of challenges for customer onboarding across different industries, verticals, and use cases. So when partnering with Dun Bradstreet as well as Huron, we saw a couple areas in credit decisioning that we can optimize that would not just optimize the credit decisioning approval process, but ultimately open the door for more enhancements and operational efficiencies for the life cycle of a customer. So you can see on the slide here, this is a solution that we've built between a CRM and a customer's ERP, and obviously Dun Bradstreet's credit intelligence platform. This is a common use case that we see again over and over again, and it's the disparate systems for all the different stakeholders in this approval life cycle. So what our goal here is to allow for those different stakeholders to live in the systems that they operate from a day-to-day standpoint, but achieve that automation for routine credit checks or credit approval processes that really bog down a credit manager's desk when they could be spending it on riskier accounts and riskier decisions. So this particular workflow, we've seen a lot of the sales, a lot of the decision processes are being kicked off via a CRM or from the front office or sales system. So what we've done is we've built a automated workflow to where that approval process can be kicked off in the CRM. It can then go to the credit manager's desk in the form of credit intelligence platform, and based off of the best practices of Dun & Bradstreet and the scorecard that you have at your organization, a lot of those routine credit approvals can just be automated and then return directly back to the CRM with a status and any other additional intel that would be valuable, as Chris just mentioned, to the sales organization. Where's it at in the queue, and then why is it approved or why is it not approved? At the same time, we're doing that. We're streamlining that process between the front office and the middle office, and then we're also keeping good data hygiene on that customer data by integrating to the ERP, whatever that may be. As you see here, we have a number of different examples here. We are agnostic to any ERP or CRM. These are just some examples on the screen that we've connected to. But I think ultimately what we're trying to accomplish is to achieve that good data hygiene, the timeliness, and also the visibility across disparate platforms. So credit can develop good synergies with their sales counterparts, contribute to more sales, also freeing up their time and mitigating risk. Jay, does that make sense? I think that kind of sums up what we're seeing in the market from a credit decision approval process use case. But that's again, that's just the baseline configuration that we've seen when dealing with some of these decision maker customers. I think it opens up to many different use cases when we're integrating and having tools like ERPs and CRMs ingest some of those fundamental data and expanded data sets from tools like D&B.
Yep, fantastic. Thanks, Patrick. And I know we're at time, but what I wanted to do is allow the presenters will stay on for a few minutes. If you guys have any questions, there's a Q&A that you can click into, and we'd be happy to address any questions you guys might have. Thank you all to the presenters. Outstanding content today. greatly appreciate the time that you guys took to put this together and share it with our customers.
Yeah, Jay, I've been trying to keep up with some of the questions coming through. I think a lot of it has to do with just the ease of trying to ingest some of that D&B data right out of the gates. And so I know there's a phenomenal offering on the Salesforce side from D&B to easily inject data into Salesforce.com. One of the questions I didn't get to was helping kind of the front office or sales get agreement with the back office finance on what is the definition of a client, what is the definition of a customer. I think that is the most common function that we find ourselves in inadvertently, is helping establish that singular definition. And I think that's where D&B is invaluable, because it is a industry standard definition of an identity, particularly a legal entity. And then what our clients can really arm themselves with is, this is the definition of a unique identity. Sales, you can sell to this all day long. Or fulfillment, you can ship and bill and expect payment from any number of these identities. But what D&B provides, what master data provides, is that single source of identity to be used throughout the business for varying ways. And that concept of ship to, sold to, bill to, payer, legal entity, that is the way you use this quality information, and not just trying to recreate the wheel every time you need to do some slightly different business process.
Yep. Yeah, Adam, we see the same thing. When there's not a lot of formal processes in place, and not maybe some different continuity issues between branches of a business. We're always, as integration specialists, we're looking for unique identifiers, right? So we've seen when customers adopt a finance analytics platform, that it helps them standardize on it, and takes away a lot of the decisioning of how to standardize on those unique identifiers, and just follow the best practices right there in things like the scorecard.
Yeah, and I would just close out and say, I agree with the folks on the line 100%, and I think don't shy away from. I mean, the structure of a customer is generally also determined by the system in which you're maintaining those customer records, whether it's Oracle, SAP, Workday. There is a framework established. How you define your parties and accounts and bill to sites and ship to sites, absolutely. But there's also, don't exclude the structure within your source system. It's usually a well-defined structure to introduce, notwithstanding what was already commented on, but you also want to live within the confines of your technology, because that's equally important. But yeah, that's something that I think this is again why I can't overstate the importance of master data management when it comes to the customer record, not so much from a marketing or sales perspective, but the data management, the governance of that as you establish these customers is equally important, and honestly should be determined and defined by finance, because ultimately that's who has to bill, invoice, chase for payment, apply payment, update records, reconcile disputes associated with those same strategies. Marketing and selling is completely different in many ways, and follows a different master data management strategy. But there is a customer component to that I think finance should certainly define and dictate in many ways.
There's
Fantastic.
Another question, Jay. Can I fix data, existing customers versus new ones coming on board? I mean, from a integration standpoint, yes. I mean, we talked a lot today about customer onboarding use case, but I know from the integration use case that I laid out, that it certainly applies and takes into account existing accounts and existing customers, as you do additional credit assessments for repeat business. I think anytime that you're going to your golden truth or your ERP as your source of truth, we're using unique identifiers to clean that up. And DMB is the kind of catalyst there. So we'd be happy to talk more in depth about that. But to answer that question, yeah, you can clean existing customer data as well as ensure the quality of the new ones you're on board.
Yeah, I think that's something Adam and his team focus on a lot.
Our data conversion, data migration, bread and butter for all those new ERP, CRM, operational risk systems.
Thank you for the question. I'm not seeing any other questions. Team, are you seeing any?
Nope, I think that's all of them.
All right, guys. Well, again, thank you very much for joining us today. We'll be sending out something as a follow-up, and we greatly appreciate any feedback on what you heard today, and hope that you'll join us for the next couple of sessions, but the next one being February 8th on best practices in customer risk management. Hope everybody has a fantastic holiday and a great New Year's, and good luck closing out 2022.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.